Ephesians chapter 6, verse 5. Now we're going to go to bondservants and masters. And really, nowadays, what this can be related to is employees and employers. And most of us, either in an employer or an employee relationship. In the biblical days, this was usually referred to as slave-master relationship. What would apply to one would apply to the other. So this is in our modern days, it's employee and employer. Verse 5, bondservants, be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in sincerity of heart, as to Christ, not with eye service, as men pleasers, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. So be obedient to those who are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in sincerity of heart, as to Christ. That's the first thing that he's saying is, in all that you do, do it for the glory of the Lord, the Bible says, right? And he goes on to say, not with eye service, not to be seen, not to, whenever the boss is not around, you're just chilling and you're just kicking back. And whenever he comes, you get up and start working. No, not with eye service, and not as men pleasers either, to be, to hear the applause of whether it's fellow coworkers or from your bosses, whatever it is. Not from that, not from them, but as a bondservant of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart, from a pure heart. Verse 7, with goodwill doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same from the Lord, whether he is a slave or free. So when someone is employing you, you have a certain obligation to obey their instructions. They're paying you to do what they want you to do, not for you to do as you please. The obedience is to be with respect and fear. So as you're working to the Lord, as unto the Lord, not to men, that also means that if the boss never recognizes what you do, if no one knows what you do, you just keep doing what you do because your service isn't to them anyway. Yes, they are your employer in the flesh and they are paying you. But all that you're doing is you're doing it to the Lord. So just reading from Chuck Smith, he said, Paul said that as employees, we shouldn't be men pleasers, but we should do all that we do at work as if God were our boss. In all that we do, we should be doing it for him. Thus, we should do it all diligently, honestly, fervently, whether anyone is watching or not, because someone is watching. And on the other end, verse 9, and you masters, bosses, do the same things to them, giving up threatening. Stop threatening them, knowing that your own master is also is in heaven, and there is no partiality with him. There's no favoritism with him. You may be the boss at the job site, but you're not any higher than anyone else standing before the Lord. You give an account for what you've done, how you treated people, how you treated your employees, but there's no partiality with God. So workers, do everything as unto the Lord, knowing that you're representing Christ in the workplace. And employers, remember that you have a master and you have to answer to him.